The golden retriever was howling in the storm drain. "Close it up, he's gone crazy!" they yelled. When he emerged with something in his mouth, everyone was speechless. Before we dive into today's story, tell me where you're tuning in from. Grab a coffee or get comfy on your couch, and please don't forget to support us. Just hit the like button, and I'll know you enjoy this type of tale. Ready? Let's begin. Rain poured heavily that Tuesday morning, turning the neighborhood streets into small rivers of muddy water. People hurried with umbrellas, trying to get to work or take their children to school. No one paid much attention to the golden retriever sprinting frantically down the sidewalk, its broken collar swinging around its neck as its paws splashed through puddles. The dog stopped abruptly at the corner of Maple Street, sniffing the air intensely, its brown eyes fixed on a partially open storm drain in the gutter, from which dark water mixed with leaves and trash gushed out. Something was deeply bothering it. It barked once, then again, a sharp, insistent sound that echoed down the empty street. "What's all this fuss now? That dog's been making a racket since early this morning," grumbled George, a retiree sweeping the sidewalk across the street, sheltered by his house's awning. The golden began to dig around the storm drain, its paws tossing dirt and water everywhere. The rain continued relentlessly, further filling the sewer system. The dog pushed its snout into the drain's opening and whimpered loudly, a sound of distress that made some windows open. "That's ridiculous! That animal will get in there and get stuck!" shouted Carol, an elderly woman in glasses holding a broom like a weapon. "Whose dog is that? Does anyone know?" asked Mike, a young man in a hoodie who had stopped jogging to observe the scene. "Never seen him around here. Must have gotten loose somewhere." "Look how dirty and agitated he is," replied another resident, holding tight to her poodle's leash, which was also barking at the golden. The dog paid no attention to anything around it. It circled the storm drain nervously, scratching the metal grate with its paws, whimpering softly between barks. Its golden fur was soaked and matted, making it appear smaller and more fragile than it truly was. "Someone needs to get that animal out of there before he falls in," warned George, approaching cautiously. "That storm drain is overflowing with the rain. If he gets in, he'll be swept away." A small group began to form. 3, 4, then 6 people watched the golden with a mix of curiosity and concern. Some pulled out their phones to film, others simply stood there, waiting for someone to take action. The dog sniffed the storm drain's grate once more and suddenly began to push it with its snout. The grate was loose, likely dislodged by the force of the water. With immense effort, it managed to create a wider opening. "No, he's going in!" cried Carol, dropping her broom and running towards the animal. But it was too late. With an agile movement, the golden squeezed through the opening and disappeared into the darkness of the storm drain. The sound of rushing water and the echo of its paws hitting the wet concrete were the last things heard before an eerie silence. "My God, that dog has lost its mind," exclaimed a woman, bringing her hands to her mouth. "Close that drain. Close it before it's too late," ordered Mike, already bending down to try and put the grate back in place. "But what about the dog? He'll be trapped down there," argued Sarah, a young woman in a red hoodie, her voice trembling with concern. "It's better for him to be trapped than to be swept away by the current and drown. The rain isn't stopping any time soon," countered George, helping to hold the heavy grate. Below, in the foul darkness of the sewer, the golden advanced with difficulty. The water was already hitting its chest, and the current pushed it back with every step. The stench was unbearable, a mixture of decaying garbage, waste, and putrid water. But it didn't hesitate. Its ears caught a faint sound, almost imperceptible amidst the rushing water. A weak whimper, a cry for help that only it could hear. Up above, on the surface, the debate continued. "Should we call animal control? Does anyone have the number?" Someone asked. "What for? By the time they get here, the dog will already be dead," said Carol, her voice heavy with resignation. The rain showed no sign of letting up, and deep within that dark storm drain, a golden retriever pressed on, guided only by its protective instinct and an unconditional love that no human above could yet comprehend. Inside the storm drain, the darkness was almost complete. Only small rays of grey light pierced through the grate's crevices above, creating ghostly reflections on the dirty, fast-flowing water. The golden advanced with difficulty, its paws slipping on the sludge covering the concrete floor. With each step, it had to fight against the current that tried to drag it back. The stench was suffocating, a nauseating mix of sewage, rotting garbage, and something worse it couldn't identify. But none of that mattered. That faint sound, that almost inaudible whimper, echoed in its ears like an urgent call that could not be ignored. It paused for a moment, raising its snout to sniff the heavy air. There, further ahead, where the tunnel curved, the whimper came from there. Gathering its strength, it plunged deeper into the sewer, the water now reaching its neck. Its hind legs could barely touch the bottom, and it had to swim in some sections, accidentally swallowing dirty water and coughing to expel it. Up above, on the surface, the group of residents had grown. More than 10 people now surrounded the storm drain, heatedly discussing what to do. "It's been 5 minutes already. That dog isn't coming back," said Mike, glancing at the watch on his wrist. "We need to close this. If the water rises anymore, it'll flood the whole street," argued Tom, an older man in a baseball cap who had just arrived. Sarah, the young woman in the red hoodie, was crouched beside the storm drain, trying to see something in the darkness. "Wait, I think I hear something." Everyone fell silent. The sound of rain hitting the sidewalks was constant, but from deep below, very faintly, came a different noise, scratching, splashing, and something that sounded like a grunt of effort. "It's him! He's still alive!" exclaimed Sarah, her eyes shining with hope. "But what is he doing down there? What's the point of all this?" questioned Carol, shaking her head in disbelief. Deep inside the storm drain, the golden finally reached the tunnel's curve. Its paws brushed against something soft, something small floating in the dark water. Carefully, it lowered its snout and felt wet fur, a tiny, freezing body. The whimper was weaker now, almost non-existent. It was a puppy, a tiny mixed-breed puppy, no more than 3 or 4 weeks old, with grey and white fur soaked in mud. Its small, still-closed eyes twitched with pain and cold. It must have been dragged by the flash flood, falling into the storm drain and carried by the current to that point where it got stuck among debris and accumulated trash. The golden gently took the puppy between its teeth, taking extreme care not to harm it. The tiny body barely moved, and it could feel how weak and hypothermic it was. There was no time to lose. It turned and began the journey back, but now everything was harder. Carrying the puppy in its mouth while fighting against the current demanded all its strength and balance. The water had risen even more. What had previously reached its chest now almost touched its neck. It needed to keep its head up to avoid getting the puppy wet, but this made breathing difficult and progress even slower. Its paws slipped constantly, and with each stumble, it readjusted the puppy between its teeth with extreme caution. On the surface, the discussion had turned into a decision. George and Mike held the metal grate, ready to put it back in place. "That's enough, we can't wait any longer. I'm closing this now," George announced firmly. "No, please, just wait a little longer," pleaded Sarah, tears in her eyes. "Kid, be reasonable. The water's rising. If we don't close this, the sewer will overflow and flood the houses," explained Tom, the man in the baseball cap. "Just 2 more minutes, 2 minutes," she begged. George looked at the other residents seeking support. Most nodded in agreement. 2 minutes, just 2 more minutes. But deep below, in the dark, foul-smelling labyrinth of the sewer, the golden fought with all its might. Every step was a battle. Its muscles burned with fatigue. Its lungs ached from the effort and the thin air. But it wouldn't let go of the puppy. No matter how much it hurt, no matter how exhausted it was, it would press on. Because that's what golden retrievers did. They protected. They saved. They never gave up. Exhaustion took over the golden's body with every foot covered. Its hind legs trembled from the constant effort to maintain balance against the water's force. The puppy in its mouth remained eerily quiet, only with slight tremors indicating that life still clung to that fragile little body. The tunnel seemed endless. Every curve revealed only more darkness, more dirty water, more obstacles. At one point, a stronger current caught it off guard, causing it to lose its footing. It was dragged for a few feet, hitting its shoulder against the concrete wall of the sewer. The pain was intense, but it kept its jaw firm, protecting the puppy at all costs. When it managed to regain its balance, its paws encountered something that made it slip violently. Accumulated trash, plastic bottles, pieces of wood, all forming a dangerous barrier beneath the water. It had to navigate around the debris with careful movements, each one demanding immense concentration, not to stumble and drop the puppy. Its eyes burned. Contaminated water had splashed into them multiple times, causing painful irritation. It blinked constantly, trying to clear its vision, but it was useless. Everything remained blurry, shadows dancing around it like phantoms in the darkness. On the surface, the tension was palpable. Sarah, the young woman in the red hoodie, didn't take her eyes off the storm drain's opening, her hands clasped together in a silent prayer. George kept the metal grate to the side, the watch on his wrist ticking off seconds that felt like hours. "1.5 minutes, announced Mike, his voice tense. "Please, please, please," murmured Sarah, tears streaming down her face, mixing with the rain. Carol approached and placed a hand on her shoulder. "Honey, sometimes we just have to accept that." "No!" Sarah interrupted sharply. "He's coming back! I know he is!" More people had joined the group. Now, almost 20 residents stood, all watching that storm drain as if their lives depended on it. Some women held umbrellas over the heads of others. A man had brought a flashlight and tried to illuminate the drain's interior, but the beam of light vanished into the deep darkness after a few feet. Down below, the golden finally glimpsed something different. A faint glow ahead, the opening, the exit was near. A new wave of energy surged through its exhausted body. It quickened its pace, its paws beating harder against the water, propelling it forward. But the current had also intensified. The rain on the surface showed no signs of stopping, and more water poured through the area's storm drains, converging at that point. It felt the water's force pulling at its hind legs, trying to drag it back. Its muscles screamed in agony, but it dug its claws into the slippery concrete and continued to advance inch by inch. The puppy let out a small whimper, so faint it was almost lost in the sound of the water, but the golden heard it. And that sound was like an injection of courage straight into its heart. It couldn't give up, not when it was so close, not when that tiny life depended entirely on it. 30 seconds, warned Mike, his hand already helping George lift the heavy grate. "Wait!" someone shouted from the back of the group. "Look! Something's moving there!" Everyone leaned forward. The man with the flashlight aimed the beam directly at the storm drain's opening, and then they saw two golden eyes reflecting the light, slowly approaching the surface. "It's him! It's the dog!" exclaimed Sarah, her voice cracking with emotion. The golden gathered its last reserves of strength. Its shoulders ached, its paws trembled uncontrollably, but it reached the base of the opening. Now came the hardest part. It needed to climb out. The water rushed powerfully around it, trying to pull it back, but it dug its claws into the concrete's irregularities and began to hoist itself up. "He's coming up. My God, he's coming up!" someone cried. The entire group was now on their knees around the storm drain, hands outstretched, ready to help. The rain continued to fall, but no one cared anymore. All eyes were fixed on that courageous dog fighting to emerge from the darkness. With a monumental effort that seemed impossible for such an exhausted animal, the golden propelled its body upward. Its front paws found the edge of the opening. One more push, one more desperate attempt, and then finally he emerged, soaked in mud, covered in waste, shaking from cold and exhaustion. The golden retriever climbed out of the storm drain. But what caught everyone's attention wasn't its deplorable state. It was what he carried delicately between his teeth. The silence was instant and absolute. Conversations ceased, murmurs quieted. Even the rain seemed to lessen for a moment. 20 pairs of eyes fixed on the tiny body the golden held so carefully in its mouth. A puppy, tiny, soaked, covered in mud, but undeniably alive. Its small limbs twitched slightly, and a faint whimper escaped its mouth as the fresh air touched its cold body. "My God," whispered Carol, bringing her hands to her chest. "He saved a baby. He saved another dog." Sarah, the young woman in the red hoodie, fell to her knees on the wet ground, tears now streaming freely down her face. "I knew it. I knew he hadn't gone crazy." The golden took 2 trembling steps, and its hind legs gave out. It collapsed heavily onto the ground, but even in that fall, it kept the puppy safe and protected in its mouth, cushioning the impact so as not to harm it. Its entire body trembled violently, a combination of cold, exhaustion, and pain. But its eyes remained fixed on the puppy, ensuring it was safe. "Quick! Someone grab a towel, anything!" shouted Mike, pulling off his own hoodie. "I have blankets in the car," said a woman. Running towards a nearby parked vehicle, George knelt beside the golden, his trembling hands slowly reaching out. "It's okay, boy. You did it. You can let go of the puppy now. We'll take care of him." The golden looked at the old man, its brown eyes conveying a mixture of relief and exhaustion. Slowly, with the same delicacy with which it had carried the puppy all the way, it opened its mouth and deposited the tiny body into George's calloused hands. "My God, he's still alive, but he's freezing," said George, wrapping the puppy in his shirt. "We need to warm him up urgently." The woman ran back with 2 thick blankets. One was immediately wrapped around the puppy, which now began to whimper a little louder, a sign that its strength was returning. The other blanket was placed over the golden, which gratefully accepted the warmth, its body still trembling uncontrollably. "Someone call a vet, quick!" ordered Tom, already with his cell phone in hand. "I know a clinic nearby. I'll call now," replied another resident, dialing frantically. Sarah approached the golden, kneeling beside it. With delicate hands, she began to wipe the mud from its face, revealing the golden fur beneath the grime. "You're a hero, a true hero," she whispered, her voice choked with emotion. The dog tilted its head towards her, and for the first time since it had emerged from the storm drain, something akin to a canine smile appeared on its exhausted face. Its tail gave a faint thump on the wet ground, a weak but significant gesture. "The vet said we can bring them both now. She'll open the clinic even though it's so early," announced the resident who had called. "My car's right here. Let's go," said Mike, already opening the back doors of his vehicle. George tried to lift the golden, but the dog was heavy and soaked. "Help me out here, folks." 4 pairs of hands instantly reached out. With extreme care, they lifted the golden retriever and carried it to the car, placing it in the back seat on a dry blanket. The puppy was settled beside it, wrapped in another warm blanket. Immediately, the golden turned its head and gave the puppy a gentle lick, as if checking for the 1,000th time if it was okay. Carol wiped away tears with the back of her hand. "To think we almost closed that drain, almost condemned them both. But we didn't," said Sarah, also getting into the car, "because we believed, because we gave them a chance." The car pulled away in the rain, carrying the unlikely hero and its little rescued victim towards the medical help they desperately needed. But even exhausted, injured, and dirty, The Golden remained alert, its eyes fixed on the puppy, its mission not yet completely over, because saving was only the first step. Now it needed to ensure that tiny life it had snatched from the jaws of death would have the chance to grow, play, and live. And it wouldn't rest until it was sure. The veterinary clinic was lit up when they arrived, even though it was so early. Dr. Helen, a veterinarian with graying hair and kind eyes, waited at the door with 2 assistants. As soon as the car stopped, everyone rushed to help. "Bring them inside, quickly," ordered the doctor, guiding the group to the emergency room. The Golden was carefully placed on a stretcher while the puppy was taken to a heated examination table. But the dog didn't want separation. It tried to stand, its muscles protesting against the movement, its eyes fixed on the small body being examined across the room. "Easy, boy. She's taking care of him," said George, gently stroking its head. "You've done your part. Let the doctor do hers." But the Golden whimpered softly, resisting the touch, trying to keep an unobstructed view of the puppy. Dr. Helen worked quickly. The puppy was hypothermic, dehydrated, and had swallowed a lot of dirty water, but its vital signs were beginning to stabilize under the warmth of the lamps and thermal blankets. She inserted a small tube to administer fluids and nutrients, while her experienced hands checked every inch of the fragile little body. "He's going to make it," she announced after a few tense minutes. "It was close, but he'll be okay. No fractures, no serious injuries, just very scared and weakened." A collective sigh of relief filled the room. Sarah, the young woman in the red hoodie, openly wept, this time from happiness. "And our hero here?" asked Mike, pointing to the Golden, who had finally relaxed upon hearing the good news. Dr. Helen approached the dog, her hands delicately palpating its body. Extreme exhaustion, a bruise on his left shoulder, superficial cuts on his paws, conjunctivitis from exposure to contaminated water. She paused, looking into the Golden's eyes with deep respect. "But nothing a good rest, medication, and lots of affection won't cure. He's strong, very strong." She began to clean him properly, removing the sewage grime while applying antiseptic to his wounds. The Golden remained still, accepting the treatment, but its eyes never stopped checking on the puppy on the adjacent table. "Does anyone know whose dog this is?" asked the doctor as she worked. Everyone exchanged glances. Sarah, the young woman in the red hoodie, checked the broken collar around his neck. "There's a name here, and a phone number." "Call them. His owners must be frantic," suggested Carol. The call was answered on the second ring. A female voice, laden with anxiety, picked up. "Hello? Hi, do you own a golden retriever?" "Yes, he ran away this morning. We've been looking for him since early. He broke his leash and just bolted. Please tell me you found him." "We found him, and ma'am, he saved a life today." 15 minutes later, Emily, a woman in her 30s, rushed into the clinic, her hair still disheveled, her face streaked with tears of worry. Upon seeing the Golden on the stretcher, she let out a cry and ran to him. "Max! Oh my God, Max!" She knelt beside him, hugging his neck tightly. "I was so worried. When I saw his leash broken, I thought I'd lost you." The dog responded with gentle licks to her face, its tail wagging weakly but joyfully against the stretcher. Sarah approached. "Your dog is a hero. He dove into the sewer and saved this puppy that had fallen into the storm drain. We all thought he'd gone crazy. We almost closed the drain with him inside, but he knew exactly what he was doing." Emily, the Golden's owner, looked at the puppy on the heated table, then at her dog, and then at all the people in the room. Fresh tears streamed down her face. That's so typical of him. He's always had that protective instinct, always known when someone needed help. In the following weeks, the story spread through the neighborhood and then the city. The local newspaper published an article with photos of Max and the puppy. The veterinary clinic offered all care free of charge for both, and when the puppy was strong enough, a decision was made. Emily, the Golden's owner, decided to adopt him. If he risked his life to save him, who am I to separate them? In the backyard of the house, under the afternoon sun, Max watched the puppy play with a ball. The little one had grown a bit. Its grey and white fur now clean and shiny, its eyes open and full of life. It stumbled over its own paws, fell, got up and ran again, while Max observed it with the infinite patience of a guardian. The scar on his shoulder had healed. The paw injuries were just memories, but something remained, something deeper than any physical mark. The certainty that unconditional love, courage, and determination can move mountains, or in this case, traverse dark and dangerous sewers to save a life no one else knew existed. And when the puppy finally tired of playing and came to snuggle beside its savior, Max closed his eyes content. His mission was complete, that life was saved, protected, loved, because that's what golden retrievers did, no matter the cost, no matter the danger. They saved. They protected, they loved without expecting anything in return, and in that moment, under the warmth of the sun and the peace of a safe home, Max knew that every second of that terrible journey had been worth it. Every single second.